Well, it's been an extraordinary past week with the listing of SpaceX, the creation of the world's first trillionaire, a Pretoria-based or born and raised Elon Musk, and lots of controversy around this one. But someone who does own SpaceX and has been saying so on the Biz News forums is Magnus Heystek. So I've asked him to give me some insight, and someone who got him to buy SpaceX in the first place is Anthony Ginsberg. And he joins us from the United States, where I'm sure there's all kinds of SpaceX fever. But maybe let's start with Anthony, because Magnus was telling me off air, Anthony, that you when you were out for BNC8 for the Business Conference, where you delivered a keynote, the two of you had dinner, and you said, this was something to consider.
Yes, I've actually been on a tour of SpaceX in the last 6 months. I've actually met the CFO of SpaceX. He's one of the newly minted billionaires there besides Elon, a guy called Brett Johnson, very bright fellow who's actually survived 16 years there, believe it or not, who told me early on, he said, Anthony, our cash cow is Starlink, and we'd love to be in South Africa as well. That's how I got to sort of befriend them. We have friends of friends. And look, it's a hell of an impressive operation there. It's not just these payloads. Look, they launched 165 payloads into orbit last year. They have about an 80% plus market share, Alec. So just on those numbers alone, it's, they're a dominant player. But actually, the cash cow is Starlink, as you know, which is all to do with broadband and satellite communications, helping the Ukrainians and helping people, frankly, in rural areas around the world where the internet connection is rather weak, including they hope places like South Africa. So it's a very impressive operation. There are some arguments about the valuation. There was an expectation of the IPO having a pop because index firms like myself, and we have this tech megatrend that many people have supported, and we appreciated the returns in tech land. Look, there is a revolution going on broadly based here. We've got other things to talk about with Anthropic and OpenAI, of course, also coming down the pike quite soon. So there's a lot of excitement beyond the World Cup here in the US. But if I could just say to you, the excitement on SpaceX goes beyond just these payloads and the orbital launches that he dominates. He's brought XAI in, which is the old Twitter, and it's brought Grok in, which is his own large language models that he's really trying to compete against the likes of ChatGPT and OpenAI. So there's a lot going on inside of this operation. Arguably, index firms like ourselves are all buying into it because we're basically being forced through MSCI and NASDAQ in the first 10 to 15 days of trade to actually buy the stock. So we expected a pop, Alec, and it'll probably continue to rise. The question will be a year from now. Some folks believe the valuation over 2 trillion is excessive, and I'll happily leave it at that, and we can chat about it.
And Magnus, how did you get to buy these shares? Because it's only just listed.
Alec, I've been following SpaceX, for a long time, and Elon Musk, and and Anthony and I had dinner, and I said, geez, should one consider SpaceX? And he made a very positive comment, basically opening up my eyes, and I did some research. And out of the blue, through my contacts in the investment world, I was offered a parcel of SpaceX, Anthropic, and OpenAI shares, and on a confidential basis, so I can't disclose yet where I got it from because there was an NDA included in this agreement. I then immediately snapped up these shares and I offered them to some of my clients, and we taken up quite a big parcel personally and for our clients. And this will come to the market quite soon. So there's something in the pipeline. But to answer your question, why I invested in SpaceX, I need to go back 30 years or so. When a fine young gentleman walked into my office 30 years ago and he said, listen, I'm starting this little financial services company. Don't you want to join me? I've got some shares at 50 cents a share, and I considered it for a while. And I turned him down, and I had some money in the bank at the time, and I rather bought a new BMW. Well, that gentleman was Yanni Mouton, and he started PSG, and I did a number. If I'd bought PSG 30 years ago at 50 cents a share, I would have been a billionaire today. So that burns me from time to time. And a similar repeat came a couple of years later when also someone says to me, "You should buy this Cape Crowd. They into micro lending and blah blah blah." And I looked at it, 50 cents a share, and that was Capitec. So and now I listen to all these analysts who say, "No, but you can't value SpaceX, and you need a balance sheet, and you need earnings forecast, and you need data." I'm saying I'm buying Elon Musk. I'm buying his story. I am not going to let another opportunity pass by. I don't fully understand his business plan. I've read as much as I can, and you've got guys like Jim Chainall saying it's going to drop by 50%, and Oppenheimer and Company, which is a big company in the States, were saying it's a fantastic buy. So there's no consensus in the market, but I said I am not letting this opportunity pass because, first of all, I'm backing Elon Musk. Secondly, this is a fairly unique industry and what he's doing. We don't fully understand what he's going to do. And you have to take some risks in the world. You know, if I think back in going back in South Africa 120 years ago when someone discovered gold in South Africa, in Johannesburg, where we grew up, Alec, was there a business plan? Was there an earnings forecast? Was there corporate governance and all that rubbish? No, you take a chance sometimes in life, and this is my chance. Now, if it works out, fantastic. My kids will fly first class. If it doesn't work out, they'll fly economy class. So
Anthony, is that a good strategy?
and at the same time, I've got exposure to Anthropic and OpenAI, and it's though, but those two are also listing later this year. So, and the final point is for a South African to get exposure to technology and technology IPOs is impossible. You can't. And here I was offered this opportunity, and I grabbed it with both hands. Am I right? Am I wrong? Life is a gamble sometimes.
Anthony, Anthropic and OpenAI are still coming to the market. If you were to look at the three companies, which is the one that on the fundamentals, in other words, on what they're doing at the moment, that you would back most strongly?
Well, since you're a big follower of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, I have to say that Elon's built a huge economic moat. Most people, when they look at the orbital launches, can't compete. Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin. I've actually been out to Florida to go see the launch pads. Yeah, Blue Origin is still tiny by comparison. They had a massive failure. You probably saw the big explosion in the last 2 weeks there. So Elon's got a huge economic moat on the launches. Interestingly enough, he's not reliant on third-party clients as much as you might think. Something like 2/3 of those launches are Starlink-related satellites. So it's actually hell of a vertically integrated, this business, beyond what most people recognize. There's also within the XAI factory, let's call it, there's something called Colossus, which is a massive data center build-out. We're all being told about these huge infrastructure spends that are going on with these hyperscalers and the cloud guys spending something close to $1 trillion a year now on AI build-out. Well, Elon's already got his own Colossus is called. It's actually out of Memphis and a few other places. So this is a vertically integrated story, and I agree with Magnus. You can't bet against what Elon's done, and he's thinking way beyond just terra firma. He's actually got these ideas to have data centers, you've heard, on the moon, where he believes you can actually save a fortune on cooling mechanisms and just day-to-day energy costs. And there is big discussion about him actually hitting $1 trillion of revenues. At the moment, the revenues are tiny relative to that. So the company is in a loss-making position only because it took over Twitter, the ex-Twitter and XAI AI businesses. But interestingly, if he can get up to even $500 billion in revenue, this will be an immensely valuable business. You heard over the last 24 hours, he actually overtook Amazon to be the 5th largest US company by market cap. It's now just fallen back to the 6th largest overnight. But all my colleagues in the indexing world and most of the big institutions, we're all buying into it. We can't avoid it. We actually are believers in it regardless. So look, the free float is very small. He's only actually floated a very small percentage, under 5%, to the market. So with all the big investment banks from Goldman and Morgan Stanley, there's a massive pent-up demand. So we don't see this falling back anytime soon. A year from now, it'll be interesting based on the earnings if he's on track to get to $1 trillion of revenue by the end of the decade. That's basically the plan, by 2030 to have $1 trillion of revenue. So it's very exciting times out here. Just to answer the Anthropic question, I met one of the top 3 executives in Seattle last week from Microsoft, and they talked about Claude. They've been testing out Claude, and I think it's worth understanding that OpenAI, this is the ChatGPT guys, it's a consumer-facing brand, whereas Anthropic is very much an enterprise-only brand. In fact, Anthropic has got 1,000 of the largest companies in America, each spending a minimum of $1 million with them already. And it's very much enterprise-based. And they're backed essentially by NVIDIA and Amazon. And Microsoft have actually backed our friends at ChatGPT. Anthropic is ahead of the game in terms of the IPO. If they get to market first, they have an advantage because they'll suck up quite a lot of AI dollars by beating ChatGPT to the punch. So we're actually very positive on Anthropic. Just a side story about that Microsoft executive telling us that it's so powerful and scary what Claude can do, Claude 4 and Claude 5, that they've sort of quarantined it within Microsoft, and it was starting to have its own communication internally there with its other chatbots, that they basically had to shut this thing down. It got so powerful that they couldn't understand what it was doing. So Claude 5 is quite advanced, and as you see, the Pentagon and the Trump administration have been giving Anthropic quite a hard time. Anthropic basically works very well for highly regulated industries, from defense to financial services, healthcare. Something like of the top Fortune 100, I believe about 80 of them are using Anthropic already. So we're pretty positive on them. They've got better break-even analyses. They're about to break even and be turned positive, whereas OpenAI is still quite some way off.
So, Magnus, you've got a stake in all 3 of them, SpaceX, Anthropic, and OpenAI. Which is the one that makes you most excited?
Believe it or not, it's Anthropic. I think SpaceX is on the high side, but it's the Anthropic one. And again, there's no media discussion in South Africa or financial analysts. You got to go offshore. It is the future that you're investing in of AI, and everybody, so Anthropic is if I have to pick one of the 3, that will be my horse to come in first.
I have to agree with you. I was a huge supporter of Gemini because of the Demis Hassabis and his pedigree and background, and Nobel Prize winner. But my goodness, having discovered Anthropic and what they've got, it's no race. You're dead right. Anthony, we had a fascinating conversation yesterday with Cy Jacobs, who said that Elon Musk has actually cracked the code of the market. He said the market is broken when it comes to Tesla and to SpaceX. And if you recall, that numerous of the BNCs, he said that his big short was Tesla. But now he said he's not shorting it anymore, and he sure as heck isn't going to be shorting SpaceX because there's limited amount of shares available and huge demand based on, yes, it is a good company, but also there's a heck of a lot of hype going around there. How would you read that? Because there's some caution that comes through in what Cy had to say.
I agree with Cy, by the way. I wouldn't bet against Elon. By the way, our other friend, Roelof Botha, has just joined the board of SpaceX as well now. So I wouldn't bet against these 2 bright ex-South African boykies who know their oats. And then you've also got some very bright other guys like David Sachs, who was also born in SA and who's Trump's AI chief until very recently. I mean, these guys, honestly, I think Magnus is in very, very good company. You've got all the big boys from Goldman Sachs to the Kelpers and all the large institutions all behind it. I wanted to just mention, don't count Elon out when it comes to the AI race with Anthropic either, because I know we all talk about Grok having some wobbles initially with the because it's obviously Grok is much more social media orientated. It's benefiting from the whole Twitter link. But just interestingly, Elon's just used this 80 billion from the IPO last week to now go and make an acquisition in the last 36 hours. You've probably heard of Anysphere. Anysphere is actually operates a massive AI operation called Cursor. So there's a lot going on that's hard to digest. And these guys are thinking, let's call it 3-dimensional chess. Many of us are just playing 1 or 2-dimensional chess. So look, this is a long-term game. There will be some winners and losers, clearly. But we're in a tech revolution fundamentally, Alex. I don't want to bet against Microsoft and the ChatGPT either, because that's really a consumer-facing brand, much in the sense of a Facebook, let's say. So you've got to actually look at these operations differently. Anthropic is an enterprise corporate Fortune 1000 operation, let's say, at the moment, very close to break even, and it'll be more profitable than OpenAI for some time. But Microsoft is a massive shareholder in OpenAI. They're not going to let this massive investment go south. So we're actually very positive that the Microsoft people I spoke with, for them, I think they're more bullish, frankly, on ChatGPT for the moment.
Okay. And so the one thing that Sai did say was that he expects, despite the fact that, if you put it politely, that Elon Musk is gaming the market, despite that, he said he feels that SpaceX's share price is not going to fall anytime soon. That said, Jeanette, who you both know, my wife, who's not she wouldn't call her an avid investor, but she's very keen to buy some SpaceX shares. And I've said, be a bit cautious. I want to get the view from the two of you, please, as financial advisors. Maybe starting with you, Magnus. I know you're a shareholder, so clearly you're on the SpaceX bandwagon. But should Jeanette put her hard-earned cash in there?
I would probably recommend that she puts her money into an index-based fund like that Anthony's running, the Hansking Megatech Fund, which we've been using for our clients for a long time. And more so because I've held personally, and in fact I've written an article on this, which hopefully I can finish this week, that I'm sending to you. Most South African investors, whether in unit trusts or share portfolios or pension funds, have missed out on the technology boom the last 15 years for various reasons. We don't have time to go through it, but the South African investment industry is actually just missed the boat. They're not involved. They've not been recommending it, and they've been buying a bit of NASPAFs, and that's cost them dearly. If I look at some of my clients or our clients who took money offshore 10, 15 years ago and put it into technology, they're extremely wealthy today. And again, whenever I try to raise this issue at investment seminars and ask the local fund managers, what about technology? They say, no, it's too risky, it's too far away, don't bother, just keep on investing in the local market. And the returns over 10, 15 years have been astronomical. So we've always had a good exposure to technology funds, but the best way would be to put it through an index-based fund like Anthony. Let the index decide. Don't make personal calls on companies you're not going to get it wrong, and the index will adjust in terms of weightings, et cetera, et cetera. And that fund is doing extremely well for our clients. I'm punting Anthony's fund, but it's actually the way to go for the average investor in South Africa who wants exposure to these exciting industries.
No, but she wants SpaceX. She doesn't want an index fund.
Yes, I understand.
Then she gives me a call. Then she gives me a call, and I'll help her.
For folks like Jeanette and others, for their spare cash and some play money, I would say, yes, you can play the stock market with some of that spare change. But I think what Magnus is saying is, for your key building blocks, you don't have to be all in on these Mag 7. For example, that Tech Megatrend Index is actually up about 30% almost year to date now. It actually equally weights, Alec, across about, let's say, 10 sub-themes within tech. So, and South Africans don't typically hear about these. These are cybersecurity companies, the likes of Palo Alto Networks, and then you've got gene editing plays, you've got AI, you've got social media plays. There's a lot of tech convergence across cloud computing, digital entertainment, like Netflix are also using AI now. We're seeing mergers between the cloud guys and the cybersecurity boys. You're seeing Elon and others in the AI space buying into some robotics players as well. So even the onshoring from the Trump administration is actually boosting global players. I would say it's not just an American story. This actually, our Tech Megatrend Index, interestingly, is only about 60% American based. The Japanese and the South Koreans for years have been leaders in robotics, for example. So we've done very well there. Then you've got Taiwan Semiconductor. You've got lots of other players, AMSL, the big Dutch company that you know. So for us, it's actually a global.
Anthony, she wants SpaceX. And I want to answer to SpaceX. Well, I cannot tell her.
Yes, I would say you can dollar cost average into SpaceX. My own view is that with the index firms all buying in over the next 10 to 15 days, these are guys like NASDAQ, MSCI, ourselves, we actually see it being a reasonably healthy price at the moment. It's all going to come down to the earnings per share, the earnings numbers over the next 6 to 12 months. There may be a pullback 6 months from now. We wouldn't be that surprised. So I would say bleed it in over time. So don't do it all on one day.
Very smart advice. It is a phenomenon. It is something that's terribly exciting amongst many people. And I had somebody tell me the other day that they've made more money out of buying SpaceX early on than they've made out of anything else. So it's been a phenomenal investment for those people who followed Elon Musk in the way that Magnus should have followed Yanni Mouton. But when we look ahead to the next maybe 6 to 12 months on SpaceX in particular, given that I'm not sure if you were aware, but Sai told me yesterday there was 100 million rand that was invested in SpaceX by Easy Equities clients. So lots of retail investors are in it. What should they be looking for in the next 6 to 12 months from this company, given that the earnings are kind of irrelevant? Again, Sai was saying he'd used the comparison of Microsoft, which is roughly worth the same as SpaceX. Microsoft turns over $380 billion. SpaceX turns over 19, and the one makes a lot of money and the other one loses a lot of money. So it really, that isn't the game. Here you've got to believe in something much bigger. But what can the company tell them that they should either be more confident in their view or a little cautious in the next 6 to 12 months, Anthony?
The two things I'm looking at are actually the growth of Starlink. Is this satellite operator actually growing beyond double digits? Is it actually growing at a click of about 25 to 30% year on year? That's what we're seeing actually in the tech space. Interestingly, not all tech valuations are excessive. The average PE ratio currently in the US on tech in our index is around 22 times earnings. It's not excessive. The Mag 7 may be significantly overpriced. When it comes to SpaceX, I would say you can't do a PE analysis right now. So look at the earnings, particularly if you can, within the underlying. So you've got this new acquisition they just took over. Look what's going on with an XAI. This is the Grok operation, and Twitter. Twitter lost about 30% of its advertising base when it was first acquired by Musk. He's rebuilding that. So let's just see how mainstream Twitter can be. They came in for some stick. So I'm looking at that as well. And then I'm also looking at their launches, their number of launches. Can they actually increase the launch frequency from about 165 a year to maybe 200 a year? So that's going to be, this is with the Falcon 9 rocket that I actually saw personally. It's a crazy looking, huge rocket. And they've got a new rocket that's actually going to supersede that. And they've got some very big defense contracting agreements with the Pentagon and with NASA. So that's all coming down the pike, Alec, in the next 6 to 12 months. And I'll be looking out for news on all of that.
Magnus, the other thing that Sai said was that with this very highly rated script that Elon now has, that he can do a lot of acquisitions, and the one that Anthony referred to, 60 billion, all share acquisition of a startup essentially, but a very powerful AI software producer. Is that the kind of thing that you're looking for to see whether Elon spends that equity cash, as it were, wisely?
I think essentially, I come back to my answer earlier. You're backing the man and you're backing his track record and you're backing guys like Rudolf Buerter. I didn't know that he's the director of SpaceX, but this is an extremely, extremely smart guy who was running Sequoia. We still is running Sequoia. We're talking very, very smart people. We're talking about Australia's richest woman who put in $100 million into SpaceX, saying this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's not going to come around again. And that's the kind of approach you must take. For the smaller investor, I would say don't try and time the market. Don't try and listen to gossip and snippets of information. Buy the big picture. You go in, buy it, and you say, I'm going to open this envelope 5 years from now. That's it. This is my approach to my personal investment. I tell my wife, she bought some, my kids bought some. I said, guys, I'm not going to talk to you for 5 years and then we can talk. But obviously I will look at it every day. But that's the approach. That's the approach. We do not understand what Elon Musk, my biggest risk, and I think it's an obvious risk, is that Elon Musk doesn't wake up one morning and boom, that whole thing comes apart. Then that's the biggest risk, is the mortality risk of Elon Musk.
I'm going to leave you with one last thought. Hundreds of years ago, there was a thing called the South Sea bubble. And people, like today, got terribly excited on something that was unknown, something that was foreign, something that was exciting, something that was promising riches beyond wildest dreams. And the South Sea bubble inflated to a point where it exploded, and everybody who put money in lost, including Scotland, pretty much lost its treasury. The Elon Musk story, the SpaceX story, is it not another South Sea bubble? It's into space, it's onto Mars, it's going to be populating Mars with human beings. It's something so wild and so far that most of us battle to get our heads around it. Is this not something that we should be at least thinking about?
The smartest guy in the world in that time, Newton, he put a lot of his money, he wiped out his family money in the South Sea bubble. So there's always risk, Alec. If an investor in this type of industry is looking for predictability and guarantees and assurances, not the right place. This is the Wild West at the moment. I don't fully comprehend it. I've been reading what his ideas, colonizing Mars with 1 million people, mining asteroids. I mean, it sounds like, Hollywood in taking steroids with its stories that it's coming up. But my golly, this guy is doing something. Starlink. I mean, as Anthony says, cash cow, low orbit satellites connecting people, um, and all the other projects, and we just maybe we just not seeing or fully understanding. But there are some smart guys. I mean, a guy like Rudolf Buerta will not have joined the board of SpaceX if he didn't look at these numbers. You remember, he's one of the smartest guys from South Africa, top actuarial student, and off he went to Silicon Valley 20 years ago. I mean, those are very, very smart people. I'm backing them. I'm not going to make a Yari mistake again.
Anthony, last word?
Well, one last word from here is, as Magnus says, it's time in the market, not trying to time the market. And the other quick thing in the States is those with a bit of gray hair, when we started our careers in the late 90s or early 2000s, we all thought the internet would be the best thing since sliced bread. Ultimately, Amazon and others have proven successful. But those businesses that went under in that bubble in 2000, 2001, they were not built on the subscription revenues that AI and cloud and even what Elon's doing. These are guys who've got basically much stronger cash flow generated stories. Starlink and others, most of the cloud companies, cyber security companies, they're all built on a monthly subscription revenue and have much more flexible ways of actually adapting to client demand, increasing and turning up and down the dial. Those old internet businesses, WebMD, Pets.com, never had it. They were blowing money on FA Cup and Super Bowl adverts. It's a very different picture today. I think it's a much more advanced financial story. So we're much more positive than what happened back 25 years ago.
Very,
Alec,
very good.
just one last point on this. And I remembered about 30 years or 25 years ago, I was invited to play golf with 3 gentlemen from Finland. They were the executives of Nokia. They were coming to South Africa. They wanted to start selling cell phones to the South African population. And I played golf with Dane Fan. And after the round of golf, I asked these guys, tell us about your business plan. How many cell phones do you think you'll sell into the South African market? And they came back and they said, our research indicates maybe 100,000 cell phones is the market in South Africa. The point I'm trying to make is there's now 100 million cell phones that are in use in South Africa today. Here is an application of a technology which we did not fully understand how widespread it is today. Now, again, there's an example. The future is so unpredictable in terms of technology, and who knows, the stuff that Elon Musk is predicting now could be commonplace 20 years from now, and everybody's using it. AI and satellites, and we're mining asteroids as they come along, and we say, oh, everybody's doing it. And so I'm just saying, I'm in boots and all, and we'll see how it goes.
Magnus, thank you for that reminder, and thank you as well, Anthony. We are a subscriber to Starlink through our colleague in Malawi. And I'll tell you what, the big advantage they've got is A, they get the cash every month, and B, if you don't pay, they cut you off. So it's a fantastic business model, and presumably one that is generating good margins for them as well, and certainly keeps our colleague in Malawi better in touch than he could be or would be in a city in South Africa. Ironic, but it's true. It's good to have got the other side of the Starlink picture from two of the fans, and I think that well, there are many other fans in the BizNews community, that's for sure. Magnus Heystek, Anthony Ginsberg, I'm Alec Hogg from BizNews.com.
Start your day a step ahead. BizNews Insider. It delivers the business stories that matter every morning straight to your inbox. Sharp, fast, and free. Subscribe now. In uncertain times, good information is priceless. The BizNews Conference is heading back to the Drakensberg. Join me, Alec Hogg, from the 11th to the 14th of August for BNC 9. Champagne Sports Resort, where it all began, and where our community gathers for honest conversations, smart investing insights, and direct access to some of South Africa's sharpest minds. Come and rub shoulders with the best we've got. 28 keynote speakers, 3 days. Seats are available now. Book your seat by clicking the link in the description.